بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome back everyone to lecture 10 in our discussion of Islamic logic. We are going to read today from lines 57 to 63, which is to talk about the conditional proposition. So in yesterday's class we introduced the concept of the propositions, and we said there are categorical and conditional. The first one we talked about was categorical. We talked about the four types, and the four types being positive and negative, or affirming and I'm thinking of math, affirming or negating, so a total of 8. Now, inshallah, we're going to talk about the shartiya. We're going to talk about the conditional proposition. This is pretty straightforward. It's no curveballs, inshallah, and hopefully I won't mess up in any of the nomenclature. But what I will do is I will start to introduce in line 63, which is the next section, which are contradictions. So in my commentary in the book, the contradictions has quite a few pages introduction before he gets into the other lines. Usually I don't do that. Usually I try to go section by section, but in this case that will be the exception. So lines 57 to 62 then will be therefore our discussion of the conditional. We will learn that there is connected and disjointed conditional statements. And then we will learn that they have two parts, the antecedent and the consequence. Obviously, all of these will explain. And then we will talk about the different types of having a link between the two parts or not having a link. And then we will learn the three types of incompatibility, which will help us form different types of statements, either something that prevents mutual inclusion of parts, or a mutual exclusion of parts, or having both mutual inclusion and exclusion at the same time, which is the core of how we consider these type of statements in logic. So those are the main things that we're going to talk about. Again, it's going to be the same textual, text-based translation commentary with copious amounts of examples. So we'll begin the discussion, inshallah, in the next clip. All right, so we begin the way we usually begin. Let me just turn to the text here. I'm going to read for you lines 57 to 62. Arabic, English. قال المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. So the Nazim, he says, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him and may we benefit from his knowledge in this world and the next. Line 57. وإن على التعليق فيها قد حكم فإنها شرطية وتنقسم. If a proposition is to be judged in terms of conditions in it, then it's conditional proposition, and it is divided in the following. Line 58. أيضا إلى شرطية متصلة ومثلها شرطية منفصلة. Also into conditional connected and likewise conditional disjunctive. So either it's muttasil, it's connected, or it's separate as disjunctive. And then line 59. جزاهما مقدم والتالي أما بيان ذات الاتصال. They're constituent parts, meaning of both types of conditional propositions. They have two types. There has al-muqaddim, the antecedent, and al-tali, the consequent. So one part will impact the second part. Well, that will be clear from examples. As for the conditional connected, it is, and then line 60, ما أوجب تلازم الجزئين وذات الانفصال دون مين. So what is the conditional connected proposition? It is that which necessitates a logical connection between the two constituent parts. Between the antecedent and the consequent, there is a logical connection between them. And the conditional disjunctive without doubt is, and that's explained in line 61, ما أوجب تنافرا بينهما أقسامهما ثلاثة فلتعلم. That which necessitates an incompatibility between its constituent parts, obviously the opposite, and its categories are three. So underneath this there are three types. Line 16, مانع جمع أو خلو أو هما وهو الحقيقي الأخص فاعلما. Either it is number A, that which prevents mutual inclusion of parts, B, a mutual exclusion of parts, or C, both, that is, both mutual inclusion and mutual exclusion. And this is the true conditional disjunctive proposition, and more specific than the other two, so know that. Okay, and then we'll do line 63 when we get to it. Okay, so these are the main verses for us to discuss. Let me go back and talk about from the beginning. So here we're talking about the conditional proposition. This is to create a proposition in which one part is judging another part based on something that we'll talk about, based on a construct that's made, either to establish or not establish that relationship. So it can either be muttasil or munfasil. It can either be connected or disjointed. And the first part of either connected or the first part is called the muqadda, antecedent, and the second part is called the tali, the consequent. So let's talk about the connected one first. It is to establish a relationship between one and the other, or to take away to negate the relationship between one or the other. So if you said if the sun is out, then the day is established, or then it is daytime. I'm translating the Arabic, so it was a little clunky. If the sun is out, so this is why it's a sharday, it's conditional. It's not like al-hamliya, what we took yesterday, which is categorical. This is conditional. So it has the construct of a condition. If this, then that. Basically what we say in English. If the sun is out, that's the first condition, then it is daytime, then you are establishing an affirmation that the antecedent is that it is daytime. Or it can be to negate. If not, the sun is out. That sounds, I know, clunky, but just to make the point. If not, the sun is out, then it is nighttime. So when the antecedent doesn't happen, which is that the sun is out, so the sun is out not. So not when the sun is out, then obviously it's not daytime, it's nighttime. So it's to negate something and to establish the relationship through the negation. So that's why we said that the first type, the connected conditional proposal. Now, the relationship between what is established or not established in the antecedent to the consequent, it could be a necessary relation, or it could be something that was established exterior. So the sun being out and it being daytime, this is it's lazim. I mean, it's part of it being daytime is that the sun. It means that the sun is out. But if you said if Zayd is in Al Azhar, then his brother is in the Cairo University. I mean, I'm just reading the example from the book. Then that's something that we've established. We've established that relationship. It's not something that we can say is necessary, like the sun. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a tissue, and I don't want to stop the recording. It's not something that we can say is necessary, like the sun being coming out. So the relationship is either necessary, lazumi, or it can be something that is established, ittifaqiyya. Ittifaqiyya means we've agreed to it. We've established this agreement that if Zayd is in this unit place, then his brother is in the other place, something like that. Okay, now let's talk about the types of the conditional proposal that is connected. So this is not necessarily in the lines of poetry, but the extra commentary. There are 4 types. It can be specific, or it could be general, it could be specific or non-specific, or universal and what did I say? مخصوصة Yes, it could be specific, non-specific, or universal and particular. Those are the words I was looking for. So, al-makhsusa, the specific, if I said, if you come to me on Thursday, I will give you a gift. So that's specific. It's a conditional statement, if, then. So if you come to me on Thursday, so I've given a specific time, then I'm going to give you something. I've affirmed the relationship between the antecedent and the consequent is the giving of the gift. Or it can be non-specific. In ja'a Zayd akramtuhu. If Zayd comes, I will honor him. So if Zayd comes anytime, so it's conditional statement, if then. So if Zayd comes, to when, it doesn't matter. It's just so it's non-specific, and I'm affirming that I'm going to give him something. Or it could be universal. And in the Arabic language, because a lot of this has to do with the Arabic, I mean, we just want to keep that in mind. كُلَّمَا جَاءَ زَيْدْ أَكْرَمْتُهُ. كُلَّمَا. Every time Zayd comes, I'm going to give him a gift. So that's universal, means every single time you're going to give him a gift. Or it could be particular. قَدْ يَكُونُ إِذَا جَاءَ زَيْدْ أَكْرَمْتُهُ. It could be that if Zayd comes, I will give him a gift. So it's not all the time. So those are the four types of conditional propositions that are connected. Next, he's going to talk about the conditional proposition that is not connected or disjunctive. So this is where you are going to negate one of two outcomes in the consequent vis-a-vis the antecedent. Either a number is odd or even. So it's got to be one or the other. So therefore you're negating one over the other. So, well, he'll give us more examples. So I'm running out of time. But so this is going to be maybe a little bit more complicated from the point of view of logic, because this is where you can make logical arguments more complex. We'll begin, I'll pick it up in the next clip, inshallah. Okay, so picking up where we left off, we're talking about the disjunctive conditional proposition, which is you are negating something in the antecedent, something in the consequent vis-a-vis the antecedent. So the example that we have in the book that we're going with is that either a number is odd or even. So he says that in the disjunctive proposition, you are in the line 61, that which necessitates an incompatibility between the constituent parts. So there are three. So the difference between what is the disjunctive conditional and the connected conditional is that in the disjunctive conditional you are negating an incompatibility between the antecedent and the consequent. And there are three types. مانع جمع, to prevent and to bring together, which prevents mutual inclusion. So you can't bring all of the parts together. And then the second type is mutual exclusion. You can't negate all of the parts together. مانع خلو, so you cannot negate it altogether. And then that which is the true disjointed conditional proposition is when you bring them together. So rather than just repeat these technical definitions that don't mean anything if you don't have an example, let's give the examples. So the first kind, which is prevents mutual inclusion of the parts. Meaning that you cannot bring these different parts together. If you said that this body, this jism, I mean, obviously this is a pen, but the jism, using the language of Arabic Islamic logic. This jism, this body, can either be white or black. This happens to be black, but let's just say if you think about an abstract pen, it's either white or black. It's impossible in this for both to be included at the same time. It cannot be white and black at the same time, because the existence of two opposites in our logical scheme does not work. It is considered muhal, it's considered impossible. Jam' al-naqidain is something that is considered impossible. But both of them can be lifted from the body, and it could be red pen. So I know that we said either the pen is black or white, but it also, the reason it's not al-haqiqi, the reason it's not the real logical conditional disjointed proposition is that it could be green, it could be blue, it could be something else altogether. So there is a little bit of, it's lacking something. But the definition of the prevents mutual inclusion, just think of this example, that both of those cannot exist in the item at the same time. So you have one thing and that which is less than the opposite of that thing. So I can't say black, it's either black or not black. That's not what we're talking. It has to be, it's either black and less than the opposite. What's the opposite? Not black. What's less than not black? Any other color. So the technical way to remember it is that you are going to have the prevent mutual inclusion of one thing and less than the opposite of that thing. It's either black or it's white. The next one, it prevents mutual exclusion. Either this is not black or not white. So you can't exclude both of them. You can't exclude it not being black and not being white. Because if you negate, not two negations is an affirmation. So if you negate not black, it's black. If you negate not white, it's white. No, white, two negations is an affirmation. So this is prevents mutual exclusion. It has to be one or the other, but in the negative. And the reason that you can't have the mutual exclusion of the parts in the double negation is that you will affirm both at the same time, so that you would say that this pen is black and white at the same time, just like in the previous example. So it is to negate something and that which is larger than the opposite of that thing. So the opposite of not black, it has to be more than that, which is saying not white. Okay, and then the true one, which is both together. This is going to be pretty clunky, so I hope I can do it justice. Either this number is odd or this number is even. Odd and even cannot be combined in the same number. And both of them can't be removed from a number. So the number has to be one or the other. There's no number that's not odd or not even. It's either odd or it's even, but it can't be odd and even at the same time, and you can't exclude both of them at the same time. And this is the one that we're looking for. This is the type of, put my pen away. This is the type of construct that we're looking for to make the perfect conditional disjointed proposition. So it joins one thing and the opposite of that thing. So another way of saying it is, another example is either Zayd is present or not present. So there's no third option, like either it's white or it's black, but then it turned out to be red. Well, in this case, either Zayd is present or not present. Why is this a tighter form? Because present and its opposite is not present. But black and white, one color is not the opposite of another color, it's just another type of color. So here, the definition of the one that unites the two, that it's both prevents mutual inclusion and mutual exclusion, is that you have one item and the opposite of that item, or that which is equal to it. So either Zayd is here or he is not here. There's no third way, there's no third thing, and he can't be here and not here at the same time. And the reason they call it haqiqi, a true inclusion, mutual inclusion exclusion, is because there's no other option. It either has to be one or the other. Whereas in the other examples we gave, that which prevents mutual inclusion and that which prevents mutual exclusion, there are potentially other things that it could be. So that this would be a way for us then to be able to critique a conditional proposition, to say whether it is a complete, it's a completely argued conditional proposition or not. And oftentimes in the larger books of logic, that's what you would find. You would find many, many examples in which different statements from different Islamic sciences would be presented and critiqued, because it's, especially like the hadd and the rasm, we talk about the definitions and things like that. But this also takes place in these type of propositions. Okay, the next part that we're going to jump into is just a little bit of the contradictions. It's not that lengthy of a part, but we'll only do a little bit in the sort of introductory remarks, inshallah. Okay, so line 63. He says in the beginning of the contradiction section, قال رضي الله عنه تناقض خلف القضيتين في كيف وصدق واحد أمر خفي. Contradiction is the difference of two propositions in terms of quality, that is, either it's affirmative or negative, and the truth of one of the two propositions is a matter that must be followed in this case. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about contradictions. The reason they're considered contradictions is that we're saying that both propositions negate each other. They would cancel each other out. So one is opposed to another. If I said Zayd came and then no, Zayd did not come, well, this is one statement contradicts the other. So that's, simple example of a contradiction. In mantiq, it is a difference in the two statements in its establishment or negation. The affirmation of one necessitates the falsehood of the other. That's how we would define it logically. So the way we have defined it, we don't mean that a contradiction is if you just had individual words like Zayd and no Zayd. That's not a contradiction. Nor is it included in a contradiction in the subject, in the mawdu'a and the mahmul, like Zayd is standing and Amr is standing. But those are two different statements that don't have anything to do with one another. If we said some of animals are people, that's not a contradictory statement. A contradiction is not involved in this because this is a difference in the classification of the kulliyat. Not included in the contradiction would be something like Zayd is a human being, but Zayd is not speaking or articulate. One does not necessitate the falsehood of the other. They're just descriptions. Now, in the larger exposition of logic, even though the later logicians will have a disagreement, we'll talk about at the end of this list, they say that the contradiction is involved in sorry, one second. That there is no contradiction in two propositions except if they have unity in the following 8 things. They have one subject, one issue that they're dealing with. So if you said Zayd is a scholar and Amr is not a scholar, there is no unity in what we're talking about. So these are not contradictory statements. Having unity in the mahmul, so there would be no contradictions if you said Zayd katib, Zayd writes, and he is not a poet. So there is the mahmul between the two statements is not the same. They're just different statements. There has to be unity in time. So if you said Zayd is fasting today and Zayd was not fasting yesterday, but the time is not the same, so there is no unity. So it's not a contradictory. It's not a contradiction. There also has to be a unity in place. So if you said Zayd is sitting in the mosque and Zayd is not sitting at home, because there's no unity in place, then there is no contradiction. I wanted to just look something up quickly for you. Okay. There also has to be unity in that which is ascribed. So Zayd is the father of Amr. Zayd is not the father of Bakr. Again, the ascription, the nisbah, what you're ascribing, idafa rather, is not. There's not a unity in it. So those are not contradictory statements. Number 6, a unity in the condition. So there is no contradiction if you said Zayd will do well if he works hard. Zayd didn't do well. Zayd will not do well if he doesn't work hard. So the conditional here is not the same, so it's not a contradiction. Number 7, a unity in what is said and what is done. Zayd is a scholar by his ability, his natural abilities, but Zayd is not an actual scholar. In Arabic, it's Zayd alimun bil quwwa, and then Zayd laysa ba'alim bil fi'l. And these are kind of words that we talked about a little bit when we talked about the mustalahat of the mutakallimun, the mustalahat of the mutakallimin in our Jawharat al-Tawheed class. So this, what is said and what is done is different. And then number 8, a unity in the universal and in the particular. So there is no contradiction if you said today is cold, some of today was cold, and then if you said all of today wasn't cold, because the universal and the particular are not shared in that statement. So the earlier logicians of Islam, these are the 8 categories that they said there has to be unity on for us to then be able to consider if there's a contradiction. However, the later logicians just simply stayed with the unity of the mahmul, al-mawdu' and the mahmul. And then those who did tahqiq, those who, tried to reconcile any of these type of differences on this issue, which is the kind of the going opinion that we study, is that the condition for there to be a contradiction is that the nisbah has to be the same. The relationship has to be the same. Remember we said is and isn't, this is that or is not that, that is, isn't in the English language or in the Latin related languages. And we said sometimes we add the huwa, Zayd qa'im, Zayd huwa qa'im, That nisbah, if the nisbah is the same, then there can be contradictions between those two terms. And this is the correct, kind of position when we study logic, because all of those things that he just said, the 8, in enumerating them, they are really just examples of the nisbah. So the time is the same, the place is the same, the idafa, the ascription is the same. All of that is really saying that the nisbah is the same. So that's where you can see like the genius of the people that do tahqiq. Well, it's not really a difference of opinion. Let me just reconcile all the differences. It's really just they're really saying the same thing. If the nisbah, if the relationship between the two statements is the same, this statement and this statement, then we can create a contradiction between them. As he says in line 63, contradiction is the difference of two propositions in terms of quality, either being affirmative or negative, and the truth of one of the two propositions is a matter that must be followed in this case. So the quality, al-kayf, the quality between the two, is when you ask, well, what does that really mean? You're talking about the nisbah, you're talking about the relationship between the two statements. So again, this is just an introduction to the contradiction. We'll do a full thing of the contradiction and conversion, the next section after that, in the next clip, inshallah. But that's all I wanted to discuss for today, because that's what we had space to do. So we'll put a pin in it here. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Alhamdulillah, in today's class we did the conditional propositions, lines 57 to 62, in which we learned that the second type of conditional, the second type of propositions is the conditional one, and the conditional can be connected or disjunctive. If it's connected, both connected and disjunction has two parts, the antecedent and the consequent. And those are typical logical terms. And the conditional connected means that there's a necessary logical connection between the two parts. And then in the conditional disjunctive, there's an incompatibility between the two parts, and those are of 3 kinds. Either you are negating the mutual inclusion of the parts, or the mutual exclusion of the parts, or you are doing both, mutual inclusion and mutual exclusion. And we said the third kind, that's the real one, because in the first kinds, even though they, the pen we said is either black or white, but it could be red. So it's not complete, it's not really, you're not really, it's not really mutual, preventing mutual inclusion. And then mutual exclusion, it's either not black or not white, same thing. But if you said that the number is either odd or even, that's the perfect one, because you can't have both odd and even in one number, and both of them can't be absent in one number, and the number has to be one or the other. There's no third option out there, like with the color example. And the way you do that is you have a quality, and it's exact opposite of that which is equal, odd and even. What's the opposite of odd is even. What's the opposite of even? Odd. That's it. Back and forth, back and forth. There's no third other option. And then we did line 63, which is just to talk the beginning about contradiction. And we said that we went through the 8 types of sentence structures that the early logicians said have to be united on these 8 things for it to be considered a contradiction. But the later logicians said it's really just about the nisba. If the nisba, the quality that's between the two, is united, that's how you can create a contradictory statement. And that's where we stopped. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.